All right, go ahead.
Hello, this is Belle Alexander, and I'm here today because I'm going to share a little bit about my homemade cooking journey and what I've done on the program. When I started, it was the 1st of October in 2018, and I joined really out of desperation. I had been actually I had been put in a nursing home at age 56. At that time, I'd had carbon dioxide poisoning because pulmonary embolism, a blood clot had hit my lung. They had put me on oxygen. My lungs weren't even healthy enough to process the oxygen, and carbon dioxide built up. It sent me into complete body system failure, heart failure, renal failure, pancreatic failure, followed by, did I say liver failure? My brain was shutting down. And by the time they admitted me to ICU at University of Kentucky Hospital, basically there wasn't much they could do for me. After 2 weeks in ICU, they told my family they were sending me to a nursing home under hospice care. Now, what my family didn't tell me, I was like that dog in the Far Side cartoon who thinks he's going to the vet to get tutored. I thought I was going to the nursing home for physical therapy and respiratory therapy so I could come back to my house and take care of myself. At that point, I couldn't stand by myself. They'd put me in a wheelchair. Basically, I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't do any personal grooming. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, that's terrible.
I couldn't dress myself. There was nothing I could do. And my family didn't tell me that they said I had 1 to 2 weeks to live. And they had told my family to get my personal affairs in order. So I was just working as hard as I could at the nurse. I overheard one of the nurses say, "Oh, don't worry about her. She's only going to live another week or so." And yeah, well, news to me. So I was busting it every day to get better. And I basically came out of there in 31 days. I was back. That's really when the real work started. I spent the next year in my living room in a hospital bed. And my son, who was 25 at the time, moved out of his swinging bachelor pad into here with mommy. And, you know, he basically fed me, made sure I had the right medicines on time. He did everything. He cooked, he cleaned, he went to the grocery. Plus, he worked his job, and he was in grad school also at the time. And between him and my parents, he saved my life. Now, I don't share this with anybody, but I'm sure you all can keep my secret. When I got to the nursing home and they weighed me, I had not weighed in over a year. I was 424 pounds. I'm not sure why I didn't just have a heart attack and die right there. But in that month, I lost maybe about 40 or 50 pounds. And I lost, and most of it was fluid from every body system was just shutting down. And I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror. So by the time I started, and I will tell you, by the time I was in my house by myself, like I'd been living here by myself for a month or so or two when I started this program. But the real impetus for me starting was I had a bad accident involving a cheese grits casserole. Trying to, in this electric wheelchair, get a cheese grits casserole in the oven. And because, I was cooking for myself and I think I'm doing great and I'm living by myself and blah, blah, blah. I still wasn't eating right. I was eating a lot of, canned soup and the way I'd always cooked and processed food and still, using refined sugar. And although I wasn't drinking Coca-Cola anymore, still the stuff you get isn't that healthy if you're opening a box or opening a can, even if you're cooking it yourself.
Yeah.
And still, we would order a pizza but in the process of putting that the casserole in the oven, somehow caught the edge of the wheelchair and a la Hansel and Gretel, slammed myself into the hot oven. And I could tell I burned my leg. But what I didn't realize, and of course, after the blood clot, you're constantly on blood thinner. So even a minor cut is a big deal. But there was blood squirting, like just in spurts, out of my leg. And so I dialed 911 and literally told them, if I don't answer, break down my door. I was afraid I might pass out before they got there. And then I have to call my son after midnight I didn't even say the worst part. After they got there and they get the bleeding stopped, that's when I realized that I'm naked. The poor EMTs, like, oh, don't worry, it happens all the time. I'm like, yeah, sure. But I still made them put my casserole in the fridge.
Oh, the fridge.
And get me dressed. I was like, I'm still not wasting that casserole. But when I went back 2 weeks later to get the 24 some odd sutures out, my leg wasn't healed because my blood sugar was so high. And let's just talk about that.
I was just going to ask you what your weight and blood sugars were prior to the procedure.
Okay, so I was at 380 pounds. My blood sugar was at 380 and would spike in the 400s.
Oof.
Yeah, like Jerry Garcia coma level. I don't know how. And my blood pressure was like 238 over dial 911. They don't know how I wasn't having a stroke. I don't know how I never had a stroke. Other than clearly things just weren't bothering me. I thought I was doing great. And I always tell people, I know people have body dysmorphia and people who are anorexic look in the mirror and think that they are so fat. I don't know what the opposite of that is, but I never thought I was fat. I thought I looked great. I guess I just didn't look in the mirror a lot.
You have a positive attitude, which I think has done wonders.
I don't know. When I think back to everything I've been through, I don't know why I just at times didn't give up or why I just, I just can tell you. But so it was when I went back to get those out and it hadn't healed. And the doctor looked at me and said, if you don't get this under control, we're going to amputate this leg below your knee. You're going to end up with gangrene. It's not healing. And just having him say that and just realizing after everything I've been through, I'm going to end up with having my leg amputated. It just was not. So it was that day I came home and I started doing research on diabetes. And because I had not been diabetic before this whole really complete system failure. I mean, before that, my A1c was 4. I'd never had issues with blood sugar. I was always really active.
And what was your A1c prior to joining the program? Do you know what it was?
11.4.
Oh.
I mean, that blood clot and the carbon dioxide poisoning and the system failure, I had always been overweight, but nothing like.
Yeah.
I was always very active and, I was a competitive swimmer in high school and college. And I was always, even though I was overweight, I was always very muscular and active. It never really impeded anything I physically wanted to do. I mean, you cannot be lazy and not mobile and follow the Grateful Dead all over the planet. I had twice. I mean, it just didn't fit with the kind of things that I did. I mean, we camped all the time. I mean, yeah. that day at the hospital, finding out they might amputate my leg, I came home. Now, as I'm doing, I used the American Diabetes site, and I just started cutting the carbs, every carb, whether it had fiber or not, because I was on a mission to get my leg healed, so they could get these sutures out. And sometime during that, across my Facebook feed came the thing about the homemade and an invite to the little free, workshop. I was like, what the hell do I have to lose? But also, being on teacher retirement disability, I was like, they aren't going to talk me into joining because I have no money. I mean, I just have no money to do it. I can't afford this. But let me tell you, after listening to Anna, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't afford not to do it. And also, I had recently priced living in a nursing home and the cost of a funeral. I was like, oh my gosh, sign me up. I can't afford not to do this. I want to keep my leg. And this needs to go. And I signed up that day. Of course, I took the option where you just pay by the month. But, I had hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate that my house was paid for already, or I would have lost my house. I mean, I just basically I would have been living back with my mommy and daddy because, I would have been homeless if not for my house. I think that year my parents paid my property taxes. I mean, literally. But I was like, this is a priority.
The medical bills just stack up. Well, I'm so happy you found us. I mean, I'm so grateful you've come so far. I would love to talk a little bit about how you got your results and what your results are as of today. We know that.
Well, let me tell you, within 2 weeks, I could not believe how much more energy I had. I was already by then able to get out of the wheelchair and get around on a walker in my house.
That's beautiful.
Within that first month, I'd lost 20 pounds. I went within that very first week, for the first time, I went out of my house, not in an ambulance at night. One of my girlfriends took me down to see a band I used to play in, and I posted pictures on Homemade. And by the way, I tried on the dress I wore. I look terrible. I post those pictures all the time. I posted those pictures because I look good, that compared to what I had looked like. But I tried on that same dress the other day. It just hangs on me now. It was pretty much busted out that night to get in it. But anyway, when I look back at that now, but that was the first week of October. That's when I joined. I lost 20 pounds by the end of the month. When I went to see the doctor the first time, I had dropped, my A1C had dropped from 11.4 to a 6.1, I think it was.
That's incredible.
I know. And I had lost, I can't remember that first time. I think I had lost maybe 40 pounds. Wow. And he was in shock. The biggest thing is I was on 4 liters of oxygen a day. And my pulmonologist dropped me down to 2.5. And I'm off pretty much oxygen during the daytime. I run it through my BiPAP at night while I sleep, as long as I don't drop, but he also wants me to keep my oxygen levels around 94 to 95. He doesn't want me to get up higher. Trust me, do not want to ever have carbon dioxide poisoning again. Yeah. And one thing I learned, and I don't know why they didn't tell me when they sent me home with it the first time, had I known to simply blow up a birthday balloon a couple of times a day, which empties all that carbon dioxide out of your lungs, I could have prevented that, but no one ever. I learned that in the nursing home, along with a lot of other things. Trust me, I was the most popular chick in the nursing home among the men.
Of course you were. You're a lively one.
Oh, yes. Yeah, a lot of perverts there. But, that's all I'll say. Avoid the nursing home. Trust me.
I would love to talk a little bit about how you got these amazing results. You know,
Okay.
losing so much weight, your A1C is dropping, your oxygen tank is.
I'm down 142 pounds total. I hit the 90-pound mark this week since I started on homemade.
Congratulations.
And I'll tell you how I did it. It's really not rocket science. I went through the modules and I did what Anna told me to do. I do 5 smoothies a week. I eat salads that are about 4 cups of greens. And I mean, I post all the time on there the brands I use. I use the dark leafy greens that usually it's a spinach kale mix. The one I use also has chard and mizuna in it. It's by Taylor Farm. And I use I roast veggies every week. I snack on them. And this week I did whatever's on sale. Now I'll tell you, the real key to my success has been I get my groceries delivered. And people are like, oh, it's so expensive. No, it isn't. Are you kidding me? Somebody else for $10 goes and does all my 2 hours worth of grocery shopping, brings it to my house and helps me put it away. No, I'm sorry. That's basically $5 an hour.
And you avoid buying all that
I
stuff.
never buy anything. I mean, I cut that off before it ever gets in the door.
Yeah.
I'm never snacking on stuff that I shouldn't have in the house, because if it's here, I would definitely
going to be eaten.
And but like when I have a house guest who's coming and they bring stuff in, I'm just not even tempted. It's not tempted by it.
Incredible. Your taste buds have changed. That's really beautiful. So you mentioned a little bit about your casserole, your grits debacle. What was your cooking and eating like prior to homemade?
I did. I was doing my cooking then. I just wasn't cooking the right things. I didn't eat brown rice. I would just fix like cheese grits casserole is now quinoa garlic casserole. And
delicious.
To me, it's completely just as delicious. I would use boxed things like Uncle Ben's wild grain rice casserole. Make it now. I just use regular brown rice. I just don't like. My son loves sushi. We made sushi last week and sashimi, except we used brown rice. My son has lost 35 pounds. He doesn't live here, but I fix food and send it to him, and I send food out to my parents twice a week. I did want to tell you a little bit about some of my other numbers, because my blood pressure, as I told you, was like 228 or 238 over. Literally, dial 911. The bottom number was it was in the 200s too. I mean, they were just like, we don't want to even let you go home, because how are you not? You know, you hate when your doctor is constantly saying, how are you not dead yet? You know, I was like, okay, is that your prognosis? I don't know.
Yeah.
You're the doctor. I'm an English teacher. I don't know. Why are you asking me that? But after I had gotten the blood sugars, oh, by the way, my blood sugar pretty much after the first month or month and a half completely registers between 70 to 90, the most I ever tried. And I post those. You can go back and just put my name in. Trust me.
That's a normal range for anyone who doesn't know that. That's
really within, I would say, 60 days of just following homemade. And you can, if you put my name in, you'll pull up those pictures. I'm posting like, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. I'm like, if I start now, maybe up to 110. My most recent A1C was 5.1. So I couldn't be more proud.
I'm so proud of you too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll never be at a 4 again. I don't care. He's taking me off the metformin. And that's terrible.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So after I had tackled the blood sugar, I'd done all this research and I did a big post on homemade of all the foods to lower your blood pressure. And I'd ordered a blood pressure cuff, and I just warned people, it's like, I know you're sick of seeing my blood sugar postings, and, you know, for my little blood prick meter, but get prepared because I just ordered a blood pressure cuff. Now you can get ready to see my deadly blood pressure. I got that thing. The first time I did it, my blood pressure was 110/60. As I had been losing the weight and brought my blood sugar down, those very same foods had already brought my blood pressure down. So I was like, okay, this thing's faulty. It can't be right. So when I went to my next doctor's appointment, I hauled it in there, and it was the same as the cuff there.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know what to tell you.
What do your doctors think when you show up and your numbers are just...
It's really funny, and pardon me if this comes off as politically incorrect, because my pulmonologist is Jordanian, and every time I go in there, he is like, "You're a miracle. In my country, people will be at your door putting down flowers and praying to you." And I'm the patient he's ever had. He's like, with COPD, he's like, I've never had a patient that I've stepped down from like stage 3 to a stage 2. But I've regained the lower lobes, the capillaries in the lower lobes of my lungs have opened back up. Now,
that's amazing.
The blood clot that hit my lung in 2017, a blood clot the size of the head of a pin can kill you.
Yeah.
The blood that hit my lung was the size of the palm of my hand.
Ah.
And even when they ran my lung scan last year, they thought I had a pulmonary embolism, and I was like, what is it, the size of a nickel? They're like, no, the size of a dime. I'm like, it's just shrinking. Go back and look at my other records. So, I mean, it's still in there. It's still just shrinking. But the fact that I've regained the capacity of those, and I am completely, your body has the power to heal itself, and through good nutrition. The other amazing thing is I had cataracts, and I was gearing up for this cataract surgery. And when I went in January, I think it was January, maybe February, it was cold. I went to the eye doctor. Of course, my parents, and I'm blind as a bat. I go to the eye doctor, and it's like my pre-op. And he gets in there and he starts looking, and I see him fumbling around, and he's looking at my folder because they have your picture. Where they take your picture, and he's looking at the picture, he's looking at me, he's looking back at the folder, he's looking at the picture, he's looking at me. He's like, goes and gets another doctor. He comes in there, he looks at my eyes, he's like, cataracts are gone. My cataracts are gone.
What?
I didn't have surgery. And he's like, this picture doesn't look like you, but this is you. I was like, yeah, I've lost a lot of weight. And then I started telling him, he's like, we don't see a cataract. We don't see any retinopathy from your diabetes. He's like, if I had to guess, I would guess these are the eyes of maybe a 35 or 40-year-old.
Wow.
And he told me that was like when he was in, I guess, med school, like one of the things they would do is the teachers would give them eyes, and they would have to guess the age of the patient by.
Oh, interesting.
And I was just like, yeah, I really think it's this program I'm doing. So.
That's so incredible. You've had so many successes. And so I just want to ask you, have you ever tried any other diets?
Oh my God. Is there a diet I haven't tried? I mean, I've wasted so much time and money on stuff that doesn't work. I mean, I've done every form of Weight Watchers. I mean, I started in the 70s, and I failed in every decade on it. And I mean, Lord, they made me hate almost every food there is. Like, there were years I just couldn't eat a boiled egg or tuna or cottage cheese because I mean, they made me hate some foods. And I do want to say, there was this, when I lived in San Antonio, and this was maybe around 87 or 88, I can't even, 88. And there was this, St. Mary's College had a community weight loss group for women. Mm-hmm. And it was free, which was a huge appeal to me because, I'm still poor then. And so I go to it, the first meeting, and people who had yet to weigh in, it was a lot like Weight Watchers. Now, St. Mary's was a college that was run by a church, a large, national denomination. And the people who had gained weight that week had to sit through the meeting with the pig nose on. needless to say, I never went back for the
Oh,
second
that's
time.
brutal.
I
That's
know, I
so
was just like,
shame.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yes, I've done, University of Kentucky had a basically liquid diet called human, like health management resources. Lost 100 pounds. The minute I had to eat real food, I of course gained it back. I mean, it took me a year or so, but that just is not realistic.
Yeah. How
I've
is
done
homemade
nutrition.
different from these diets that you've tried?
I eat real food. I eat a balanced diet. I eat food I like. There's no food that is not allowed. I don't feel deprived. I am not hungry. I don't have any cravings. My family is like shocked because I rarely eat out. But if we go out or we have a family thing, there's not my parents are always like, "Can you eat this? Can you have?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can have anything." What I
That's so
found
beautiful.
is like I don't really want it, or I have a few bites. I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
Now, I did have a big binge between Easter because it was Easter and then my birthday and then the Kentucky
I was
Derby.
going to say, I remember the Kentucky Derby from your post.
I'm not a drinker. Like, see that bottle of wine?
Yeah.
That is a bottle of wine somebody gave me, and it says Grateful Red. They gave it to me in 1990 as a wedding gift. I have a bottle of champagne in my fridge that's been there. It's probably vinegar by now.
It's
Been
aging well.
yeah. I mean, I just not. But let me tell you, somehow during Kentucky Derby, I had just like copious amounts of mint juleps. I'm just not a drinker. But I like went to a Derby party. I actually went to the Derby. I just was out and about. But I went to the Derby because my parents wanted to. We had box seats on Millionaires Row through the C.V. Whitney farm. And I just thought, wow, I just don't know if there will be another year that all of us are in good enough health to do this. And for years, we've always gone. And I just wanted to do. I'm sorry, I just thought of the year we went and MC Hammer was seated in our booth. Actually, because he did not have the right skin color, they weren't going to seat him in the clubhouse. And my mother went right up there and said, "You can sit in our booth." And MC Hammer with his fancy MC Hammer pants was sat in our booth. I mean, it was hilarious, but yeah.
All right, so just one last thing. I just wanted to touch base a little bit on the members only group because you're really active on there. You do such a great job at supporting your peers who are also in the program. And I just wanted to touch upon how the members only group, how does that work for you and what is it like to receive coaching there?
It has been wonderful. I think the thing I wish there are a lot of people, I can look and see how many people are members, but there are so few of us who actually post. And I know there are a lot of other people out there who, for whatever reasons, aren't posting. I hope they're reading, and I hope that's enough, but I just want to encourage everybody to get involved. I mean, it has been so integral in my success of having somebody, and you just can't be shy. I just told you people I weighed 424 pounds because I know you're going to keep my secret. Before I read that all over the internet, I don't care. I mean, it was, and when I tell people this program saved my life, this program saved my life. I did want to tell you, though, about my cholesterol, because when I started, my cholesterol was, my LDL was 180, maybe 180 something. And at my last check, it was 130. Now, my LDL was 54, and it's 60. So now I've never had big cholesterol issues. My triglycerides, though, were 242, and they are now 131.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
And this is all without dieting. This is just
No, this is just changing. And I got to tell you, it starts with, like, it says cook, eat, listen, but it starts with the shopping part for me.
Yeah.
And controlling what I bring in this house controls what I eat. And so, but mostly it's not just the members only group. It's the bonds and the friendships and the connections I have made in the group. And although we don't see each other in person, they are as deep and as connected. And a lot of women on there I am more connected to than some of my real life friends. And the issues, because we have shared experiences. And we are connected in ways that some of my little scrawny, skinny real life friends just don't understand and have been through. And I appreciate, like, I'll post things and tag the homemade girls in it, like you. And, because I know you're going to know, or going to find out. Like what I found out by experimenting is I just can't eat refined sugar anymore. I just can't do it. It crippled me. I could not. I mean, I couldn't stand up. I thought I had stress fracture. Well, okay, I did have stress fractures. But then when it started on my other foot, I was like, I did not stress fracture this foot by jumping up and screaming at the ref. The basketball season was over. But it's exactly what it felt like. And it was all sugar related. And I just can't do it. Lesson learned.
Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story. I appreciate it. I know we could talk for hours.
Yes, trust me.
Your results have been absolutely monumental. We're so proud of you, and we're so grateful.
Oh, and along with my numbers, I just want you all to know I'm down 3 or 4 chins. A couple more to go.
You look
great. Like I said before, my hair has grown like crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, locks of love about to come your way. I've donated my hair to cancer survivors 3 times before, because it grows fast and long, and then I donate it. So
that's beautiful.
Next time it could be sheared short. Might be surprised.
Fun. Well, thank you, my dear.
Well, thank you for having me, and everybody out there, just one day at a time. You don't have to be perfect, just a little bit better than yesterday.